Hello everyone, welcome to my biology classes. Today I will be starting with chapter 2, class 11, biological classification. Okay, so let's start. So what do you mean by biological classification? So here what we do, biologically we classify organism based on similarities and dissimilarities and their phylogenetic descents, okay, the evolutionary trend that they are following. Okay, so what does the definition is saying? It is a process of grouping. So we are grouping here, grouping organism, okay, together, grouping together various organisms according to their similarities, characteristics, similarities and dissimilar characteristics we are considering here, and phylogenetic descent we are considering, the evolutionary trend we are considering is known as your biological classification. All right, understanding the point? So here we are categorizing the organism, we are grouping the organism into different classes, one group like that, and based on their similarities, one group we are putting here, one group we are putting here, okay, like that we are categorizing organism as based on similarities, dissimilarities and phylogenetic descent. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So here last chapter 1 video we have already discussed 2 kingdom classification, 3 kingdom, 4 kingdom and 5 kingdom. Okay, so here in the whole chapter we are going to discuss about 5 kingdom classification. All the 5 kingdoms we are going to discuss in details. All right, so this 5 kingdom classification was given by whom? RH Whittaker. Okay, in which year? 1969 he has given. All right, so here in this video we'll discuss the first kingdom, that is kingdom Monera. Okay, in the next subsequent video we will be discussing protista, fungi, plantae and animalia. Okay, this chapter, the whole chapter is based on their details on this 5 kingdoms. Okay, so let's start with Monera. Okay, so starting with kingdom Monera. Okay, so here in this kingdom we have all the bacterias. We'll study all the bacterias. Okay, it includes all the bacterias. Clear? So let us go in details. The next slide. So Monera, it is a group, it's a kingdom, one of the kingdom, includes all the kind of bacteria. See, I have already told you, which are prokaryotic cells. So do you know what is prokaryotic and what is eukaryotic? In class 9 you have got, I guess. Okay, so in case of prokaryotic cells, they do not have well-defined nucleus. So what they have? They have nucleoids. So freely floating genetic materials. Okay, they don't have cell membrane. Okay, they do not have cell organelle. All right, so here the cells do not contain well-defined nucleus. They do not have the proper nucleus. Okay, the cell wall, their cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan. And can you tell me what is the cell wall of plants made up of? The cell wall of plant is made up of cellulose. Don't forget. Okay, so in this case, sorry for that. In this case, the bacteria, the cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan. Okay, and they do not have well-defined nucleus. Okay, they are prokaryotic. Okay, so it will be more clear when you see the diagram. So this is the diagram of a bacteria cell. Okay, where the important parts is labeled nucleoid, where you can see the genetic material it is freely floating. Okay, it does not have any nuclear membrane. Okay, they have cell wall which is made up of peptidoglycan. All right, they have flagella. Okay, this is the diagram of bacterial or prokaryotic cell. So moving on to the next slide. So these bacteria are having different shapes, and based on different shapes we have named it. Okay, it has been categorized into 4 categories. Okay, there are different shapes of bacteria present. The first shape will be spherical cocci. They are known as cocci. Spherical, like this. And you have rod-shaped bacillus, like rod-shaped, it's like this. Okay, they have comma-shaped, some has comma-like this, comma-like, they are known as vibrio. Okay, and spirilla, it's like something like this, having flagella, it's like this. Okay, so it will be more clear when you see the diagram of the 4 different shapes of bacteria. Next slide, moving on to the next slide. So these are the diagrams. It will be more clear to you. So cocci, spherical, you can see. Bacillus, rod-shaped. Spirilla, okay. Vibrio, comma-shaped. Okay, is it clear to you? The 4 shapes, different shapes of bacteria. All right. Bacteria of different shapes. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. Moneras have maximum nutritional diversity or maximum mode of nutrition. This means what? They show maximum difference in diversity of nutrition. That's how they used to take in food. Okay, so different bacteria show different mode of nutrition. Okay, so this question has come many a times in your NEET examination, the whole sentence. So you have to know which kingdom involves the maximum nutritional diversity. So it will be monerans. Okay, so one by one we'll go in details. So nutritional diversity means what? They can be autotrophic also, means they make their own food through photosynthesis. Okay, means they will have chlorophyll. All right, and parasitic means what? They need some host body, they need some body to have their food. Okay, and heterotrophic means what? They depends on other for food. Okay, then saprophytic means what? They feed on dead and decayed matters. All right, getting my point? All right, moving to the next question. So we have one example of bacteria, that is mycoplasma. This is a very interesting bacteria. Okay, so it is the smallest bacteria in the whole world. Okay, smallest bacteria. So it does not have cell wall, does not have. But what we have studied, that bacteria are having cell wall which is made up of peptidoglycan. But in mycoplasma, no cell wall is present. All right, and it's the smallest cell which can survive without oxygen. They can survive without oxygen also. Okay, this is the picture of mycoplasma. All right. Now one more thing is that mycoplasma is known as the joker of plant kingdom. Why it is known as the joker of plant kingdom? Because they used to change their shape frequently. Okay, therefore it is called highly pleuromorphic. The terminology you see, what do you mean by pleuromorphic? Pleuromorphic means changing shape. All right, they used to change their shape frequently. Therefore, they are known as the joker of plant kingdom. Clear? Okay, moving on to the next slide. So now we will be discussing about in details about 2 varieties of bacteria. The first one is Archaebacteria, which are primitive bacteria, and Eubacteria, which are true bacteria. Okay, so we'll go in details in the next subsequent slides. Okay. So bacteria are basically of 2 types, Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. So moving on to the next slide. Starting with Archaebacteria, since I have already told you that they are most primitive type of bacteria, so we can also say that they are ancient bacteria present in the extreme of environment, extreme condition they can survive, like harsh environment they can survive, harsh environmental condition they can overcome. Okay, for example, in extreme salinity they can live. So these Archaebacteria, when they live in an extreme saline condition, they are called halophiles. Okay, They are called halophiles when they live in an extreme salty environment. Next, hot spring, hot water spring. Okay, when they live in a hot water spring, they are called thermoacidophiles. These are bacteria, okay, different bacteria. Okay, and next is when the bacteria live in the marshy land, marshy areas means waterlogged area. So they are called methanogens, methanogenic bacteria. Okay, so one more property of methanogen is that methanogens are present in the gut region of the ruminants. Ruminants are example of ruminants, can you tell me? Cow, buffalo and all. Okay, and they produce biogas. This bacteria which lives in the gut of the ruminants produces your biogas. Okay, so these are a few examples of Archaebacteria, that is haliophiles, thermoacidophiles, methanogens. Okay, so they are ancient bacteria which can survive in extreme harsh conditions. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So now the second type of bacteria, that is Eubacteria. That is a true type of bacteria. They are true bacteria which have a rigid cell wall which is made up of peptidoglycan. Okay, it is having a rigid, tough cell wall which are made up of peptidoglycan. Okay, and motile organism have flagella, like in this picture it is showing. This is a picture of Eubacteria, which are, you can see, rod-shaped bacteria having flagella which will help in your motility, means movement. Okay, all right. So now we will see the types of Eubacteria in the next slide. So we will see 3 types of Eubacteria in this slide. That is photosynthetic autotrophs. Okay, next is chemosynthetic autotrophs. Next is heterotrophic bacteria. Okay, so one by one we'll go in details in the next subsequent slide. These are the 3 types of Eubacteria. Okay. Now moving on to the next slide, starting with photosynthetic autotrophs. So photosynthetic autotrophs. So example, in the first line, the example is given like cyanobacteria. It includes cyanobacteria. We can also name it as blue-green algae. Okay, blue-green algae is not an algae. Okay, it's a bacteria. Okay, so one example will be cyanobacteria, which comes under photosynthetic autotrophs. Photo means what? They light. So they make their own food. Photosynthesis means what? With the help of chlorophyll and sunlight, they used to make their own food. Okay, so they used to make their own food. Okay, so they have chlorophyll and carotenoids. They have pigment, because we need pigment for the synthesis of food. So they are having pigments also. They are unicellular, single-celled. Okay, they are single-celled. Filamentous means filament-like this shape. Next slide we'll see the diagrams of it. Or it can be colonial. It survives in colony also. And body is covered by a mucilaginous sheet. So it is having some outer covering. Okay, sheet, mucilaginous sheet it is having. Okay, so next example can be nostoc and anabaena. Okay, have heterocyst. So it is having some cells in their body. They are having some cells. Okay, they are called as heterocyst, which will help in the nitrogen fixing, which will help in the atmospheric nitrogen fixing. Okay, so they have cells in between. They are called heterocyst, which will help in the nitrogen fixing. So next slide we'll see the diagram of nostoc and anabaena. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So this is the diagram of nostoc. They are basically filamentous blue-green algae. Okay, cyanobacteria it is, means nostoc. Okay, this is the diagram of nostoc. They are filamentous, see, filament like. Okay, so they have, see this structure, these cells they are having, which are called heterocyst, which will helps in nitrogen fixation. Okay, you can see covering, that is called mucilaginous sheet. Okay, it is having a covering. Okay, this is the diagram of nostoc. Okay, the next we'll see the picture of anabina, same like nostoc. This is the picture of anabina. Heterocysts, these are heterocysts which are present, filament like. Here mucilaginous sheet is not visible, but it is having mucilaginous sheet. Okay, getting my point? So you have to know the examples of photosynthetic autotrophs, that is nostoc and anabina. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, we have different type of bacteria, that is chemosynthetic bacteria. So what do you mean by chemosynthetic? Means here no photosynthesis and all is occurring. Here we what they are doing, they are taking up inorganic substances. They have inorganic substances, okay, which will give them energy, which will provide them energy. Like why in case of autotrophs, so how they gain their energy? By doing photosynthesis, and they are gaining energy. But here they are what they are from where they are gaining energy? From inorganic substances they are gaining energy, like ammonia, nitrates and nitrites. Okay, so sorry for the disturbance. So the next where was I? So I was here. So they get the required energy from ATP. Okay, energy in the form of ATP they are gaining from where? From oxidation of various inorganic substances. The inorganic substance get oxidized. For example, what are the substances? That are ammonia, nitrates and nitrites. Okay, they are oxidized to provide energy to that particular bacteria. That is called chemosynthetic. That is called chemosynthetic autotrophs. Okay, getting my point? These are the important lines which you have to mark to gain energy. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So this is an example of chemosynthetic autotroph, that is Bagiota. Only one example is there in your book. You have to know the example. This question has also come in your NEET examination. Okay, clear? So moving on to the next slide, heterotrophic bacteria. Now maximum bacteria are heterotrophic. Okay, so here the first line is only saying most abundant, means maximum of the bacteria are heterotrophic bacteria. Okay, means they depend on other for their food. Okay, they act as a decomposer also. They have different roles. Like for example, they are used for various purposes, like helps in nitrogen fixing also. Okay, making curd also, from milk to curd also the bacteria is used. Then for making antibiotics also the bacteria are used. Okay, so many bacteria are pathogens causing various disease in plants and animals, means they live inside the plants and animals and they causes harm to the plants and animals. Okay, so for example in plants, one disease, these are four examples of some diseases, like citrus canker. This disease is a bacterial disease which occur in citrus fruits like lemon, oranges, etc. Okay, tetanus, you have typhoid and cholera. This affects the humans especially. These are bacterial disease. Don't forget the example. Okay, tetanus, typhoid and cholera are bacterial disease. Don't forget that. Okay, you understood the usefulness of the bacteria? Three usefulness characteristics is given here, that is nitrogen fixation 1. One is from curd to milk formation of curd, that is, then antibiotic production. Okay. Now moving on to the next slide. These are few examples which we have already discussed. Rhizobium, which are present in the leguminous plant, the roots of the leguminous plant. These are bacteria which will help in your nitrogen fixation. Okay, they are rhizobium bacteria. Okay, and lactobacillus, which will help in the conversion of milk to your curd. All right. Okay. Now moving on to the last slide. This is the disease which is showing the citrus canker disease in a orange. Okay, you can see this is a bacterial disease, citrus canker. And which bacteria is involved? That bacteria is heterotrophic bacteria. Okay, understanding? Okay, this is the last slide. So next we'll discuss the next kingdom. Okay, so thank you for your patient hearing.